I realize that most black people are suffering not because of racism, this lie about racism, but the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character.
There's some OGs I'll look at sometimes and I think to myself, how did you know? Like, how were you so ahead of the curve? How were you so ahead of your time? You know, guys like Thomas Sowell and Jesse Lee Peterson, who I'm about to get into. Now, these are two vastly different individuals, but yet they have the same message. And the beauty of these types of guys is like, not only are they still around to speak to the issues of today in the same way they did, you know, in the 70s or even the 60s, but they're bold in their approach, which matters most to me, you know, beyond just intelligence and intellect, but also the fact that you have the stories of what actually happened as opposed to the propaganda of what we're supposed to believe happened. For example, we all believe that pre-Jim Crow, black folk had nothing, did nothing, and, you know, were basically royally cooked. Like everybody was just, you know, at the behest of the Democratic plantation and these Jim Crow laws, when in truth, these were some of the most dynamic times as a culture that black folk in America had, right? And they were building and creating these ecosystems for themselves. They were building businesses and homes and had two parents in a household. You know, 88% of married household. There was children out of wedlock was looked down upon. Whereas now we have a baby mama, baby daddy epidemic in the very same group of individuals. And so, you know, I want to get into this video of Jesse Lee Peterson basically explaining his own story, but in the context of that, why I wanted to share this with you is because he breaks things down so simple. That's why I like Jesse. You know, Jesse is a simple man, but his message cuts through because, again, it's honest and it's straight up. And so we're going to get into this, and I'm going to give my little 2 cents as we move forward. So get yourself a little sippy sip water, not just sippy sip. Some of y'all trying to reach for the Hennessy. I'm not promoting that. Nope, I'm not standing on it. I'm not standing on it. Get yourself some water, hydrate, and let's get into it. High, not hydrated. Hydrated, not high. See, look at me. I'm tripping. Now you about to reach for the damn bleezy. Nope. Hydrated, not high. Stay hydrated and not high. Stay high. I got to say it 3 times just to clear out the first mistake. Stay hydrated and not high. Let's get into it.
As long as you have fear, you only get worse. You don't get better. And that's what the Democrats and the liberal, the media has. If they can intimidate you, then they can control you. If they can make you angry, then they can control you. All angry people are blind. They're asleep and don't know it. The eyes are open, they're moving about, but they're asleep. I realize that most black people are suffering not because of racism, this lie about racism, but the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character. I am Jesse Lee Peterson, founder and president of the Bond, a nonprofit organization, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny, and we are rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. The worst thing that can happen to boys and girls is to turn them away from their fathers, because when you turn them away from their fathers, you turn them away from God, their own identity. The father represents Christ, and when you hate your earthly father, you hate God. My problem was I resented my mother, and I resented her because she turned me away from my father, or at least tried to. I went and forgave my mother. I went to her. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do in life. I went and told her that, you know, all of my life, and I was 38 at the time, I said, all of my life I resented you because you tried to turn me away from my father. You had no patience, and I become like you. And I'm sorry, I realize now that you couldn't help yourself. And when I forgave her, God forgave me, and he took away the anger.
You become the thing that you hate most. Me and my girl were having this conversation the other day, and I brought this up, and, you know, I was reflecting on some of the people I've known in times past, and to see how, you know, a man will become just as the father that he hates in the same way he becomes the father that he admires and looks up to. And I believe you are only truly free when you can break both of those. You break the attachment of needing your dad's, you know, approval in essence in order for you to be something, you know, his validation, but you must also break free from that hatred that you have, that resentment, that disdain that you may have. And there's a lot of that. And it's incredible because Jesse's message has always been one around forgiveness. And He is a guy who, because he's such a straight shooter and says things exactly as they are, and some of the things come off as controversial, but, truth is oftentimes controversial in a world that essentially has fallen in love with the lie, right? But it's simple. It's like, oh no, but this is what the system has done to me. This is what even feminism. This is what the patriarchal system has done. It's like, perhaps there is something deeper. Perhaps this is layered. Perhaps this starts in the household with those foundational, fundamental relationships, right? So that's why I do love, again, his approach is it's always cutting directly to the bone. It's like, oh, well, you got to forget your mama. You got to forget that. You have hatred in your heart. You have anger in your heart. And a lot of folks are walking around with a lot of anger that they project out onto the world, and it becomes everybody else's anger, projects onto the next generation, and it becomes that cyclical thing, that generational curse.
And with the anger, the fear disappeared, the doubt, the worry, and all that stuff. And I realized then that black people were suffering not because of racism, but the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character. And so I went back to God after he showed me what was wrong. I said, well, you've changed my heart, you've changed my values. I can no longer identify with the Democratic platform because the Democratic platform is anti-God, anti-family, anti-country, anti-military, anti-unborn child. I said, I can't identify with that anymore. Can you forgive me? And God said, oh yeah, no problem. And so he forgave me, and I became a Republican conservative. And I am 100% Republican conservative. I'm so far right that I can hardly see myself. When I was a Democrat, anything goes. I blame white people for all my weakness and failures, and I suffered for it. And it wasn't until I really began to look at myself to understand if I'm black and racism is holding me back, according to the Democrats and the race hustlers like the NAACP, the Congressional Black Caucus, and most of the black preachers, they say, well, you can't make it because of racism. And I thought about it after a while. If racism is holding me back, why is it that it's not holding the black people back who are telling me that it's racism? They were married, their kids were going to good schools, and that's when I realized I had been lied to, that it wasn't about racism, that white people were not holding me back, and the Democrats didn't care about me. They were lying to me. They keep telling black people over and over again, the Republican Party is a party of racist white men.
I mean, I've made countless videos speaking on this, and I will make infinitum more if it's necessary, and it probably is, because a message needs to be repeated before it becomes a part of a person's conditioning and their psyche. I say so long as they are, pushing the narrative of the opposite of the truth, then I'll be pushing the truth twice as hard. Simple as that. I will double down on it. As long as they continue to push a message of dysfunction, I will push one of functionality. As simple as that. One for one. That's that eye for eye for me for sure. But yeah, I was raised with the exact same, or at least conditioned to believe the exact same thing. It's like black folk have the most conservative values in every demographic, and yet they have the least conservative values when it comes to their vote. And it's simple because you have been conditioned that this is what you're supposed to do and who you're supposed to be, and it's been co-opted. And we're told that the Republican Party is a party for the white man, when in truth, historically, that has never been the case. It has literally never been the case throughout American history until the turn of around 1965 when, the Democratic Party switched. They didn't switch the party, they switched their tactic, and their tactic was to use their ability to control you through handouts. Simple.
Who hate black people, look at us, we love you, we care about you, it's not your problem, here's a free stuff. And generations of blacks are addicted to that for the last 60 years or so. And that's why most of them are stuck on the Democratic plantation. And a lot of blacks are unable to leave because of that mentality. And in some cases, they are afraid to leave because they are attacked by their family members, they're attacked by others. The Democratic plantation really is worse than the plantation that I grew up on. And I grew up on a plantation down in Alabama. I grew up under the Jim Crow laws. And I remember for colors only sign, whites only sign. But the one thing that did not happen, we were not told about so-called racism. We worked hard. My grandparents worked hard, and their parents worked hard. We were very independent. Unlike the Democratic Party, their plantation caused you to become dependent on them and not on yourself. And once you become addicted to that, they will not let you off. And if you try to get off, you are attacked. You're called Uncle Tom.
I see that every single day I'm attacked. You know what I mean? I've been a runaway slave. I've been off the plantation. I've been living my life Django style. I've been on a horse, been wearing these blue damn pants and jacket matching. Like, I've been, and still I get, is that a man on a horse? Like, that's what I still get on a daily basis, because most cannot fathom. And I believe we are in a great awakening. You know, there's a reason why I can speak to these things, and it resonates at some level, not just in America, but across the planet. We are finally waking up that it's so much deeper, it's so much bigger, and that it's not just about pointing to the real enemy, but viewing within ourselves the power that we hold. That's my God honest message. It's not about, okay, it's the Illuminati, now we got to point out, it's actually a class thing and not a race thing. No, stop the separation. It's to go within and to say, how do I create what I am here to create? How do I live in tandem and in unison with my purpose in life? That's what this is about.
Tom, a sellout, the N-word, and all kind of craziness, because they do not want you to lead that plantation. But we gave black people a black president. I didn't vote for him, but white people did. And instead of getting better, the races are more divided. And it's not a race problem, it's a spiritual problem. I wanted to find a way to get the word out. I talked to a friend of mine. I said, I'd like to get the word out that black people are suffering due to the lack of moral character. It has nothing to do with color. I just wanted to have a discussion about what was really wrong. We had a meeting and about 100 or so people showed up, and I told them what I said, look, it's not about color, it's about character. Men and women need to return to God, raise your children, stop whining and begging. And the meeting was so good that they asked, well, let's have another one. So we had a second one, and then another one, and one thing led to another. Every year we have a men's conference on Father's Day weekend, when we bring men in. They come in from around the world, and we deal with men issues, showing these guys how to get back on track. Well, it is working, because once they overcome their anger, they feel better about themselves, they can move on.
Oh, Jesse. Thank you, brother Jesse. We appreciate you, man. My favorite Jesse-ism is, besides beta, is I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro. Oh, man, this dude cracks me up. This is like the most serious set I've really seen setting-wise. Otherwise, this dude he cooks. He's different. But again, the message is always going to remain the exact same. We got to let this thing go, folks. We got to shake it. We got to shake the shackles off our feet so we can dance. So you can go out there and live your life. Like, you look back to the ones who I'm talking about the most severe of situations, were able to not only make it out of those. You got a Frederick Douglass, my birthday twin, Frederick. You understand me? My kindred spirit. Frederick Douglass, who at 20 years old ran to his freedom, bought his freedom essentially. And he became one of the greatest speakers of all time, befriended, probably the most popular president in American history, in Lincoln. And this man literally goes down in history as one of the most influential people in American history in the midst of slavery. Just imagine how much more we can do in the midst of freedom. Peace.
I used to be afraid of the dark, a place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him. I know the time is taking. A 365, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising.